I'm in the Harbor Hopper.
Alright, we're going to be making our turn onto Spring Garden Road. Alright, Spring Garden Road is hailed as the busiest street east of Montreal, and it's a part of the commercial district here in Halifax. So basically, every building is a different shop. There's tons of restaurants and pubs. There's even a mall with a movie theater. So there's really something for everyone on the street. It's a lot of great options. And the street got its name because of the freshwater springs that used to run directly underneath it, and as well as its proximity to the public gardens. And there's a lot of great options for you guys, but I always like to give two shout outs every time. The first one is Cows there, and it's hailed as
Hello.
Canada's best
Hello,
ice cream. I'd have to
Jason
agree. They started in
Sutter.
PEI and they have a couple of shops here in Halifax. It's a really great ice cream. And the other place there is Jennifer's, which is a souvenir shop. They have a lot of great arts and crafts, and they're offering people who are born in the Atlantic provinces, so you're getting something really authentic there. And the street actually used to be full of Victorian homes, and now there's
We're
only
going
one
to the
left. It's right there
water.
on your left-hand side. And so, notice maybe on the side it said that it's for lease, so if anyone's looking for a retail space, maybe that's your space. But if you wanted to buy it, it's a bit steep. It's sitting at about $8 million. So, I don't know about you guys, but that's out of my budget. And at the lights, we're going to be passing by the Halifax Central Library coming up on your left-hand side. And so it's right over there. It was opened in 2015, and it's one of the most architecturally interesting buildings that we have in the city, as well as one of the most sustainable. So it's supposed to look like books that are stacked one on top of each
Halifax
other, which is why it has
Library.
that really unique shape. And it's a great place if you have any kids. They do a ton of events, especially in the summer. It's a great place to go read on a rainy day. And then right over there on your left-hand side, that's the Halifax Memorial Library. And it was in operation until Central Library opened, but it's currently not in use, but we can't tear it down because underneath the building are thousands of unmarked graves, and they stretch into the surrounding area, so it is going to stay there for the time being. And also on your left-hand side, you're going to see St. Mary's Basilica, which is a cathedral here in Halifax, and it's really tall. It has the highest granite spires in North America at 189 feet. And the building is inspired by Gothic revival and Georgian architecture. It's really beautiful.
Just. Diamond Baro.
And right over there on your right hand side, that is the old burying grounds, and they are the
Oh,
oldest. That's the oldest cemetery in Halifax. And so it opened in 1749, and the day it opened was the day after British settlers came to Halifax. And at the old burying grounds, they have 1,200 headstones, but they actually have 12,000 bodies buried there because they would use mass graves and they would stack bodies one on top of each other to save space. And so at the old burying grounds, we have a couple of notable people who are buried there. One being a family Major General Robert Ross. So he was best known for fighting in the War of 1812, and he was one of the men who tried to burn down the White House. And he died in the Battle of Baltimore. And then his dying wish was to be buried on British soil, but his men were kind of cheap. They didn't want to send him to England, so he was sent to Halifax instead. And they didn't send his body in a casket. They actually got pretty creative. Does anyone have any guesses to what they
hello.
sent his body in? No. They sent his body in a barrel of Jamaican rum. They sort of pickled him, you could say. And his body got there safe and sound in Halifax, and his men held a lovely ceremony. And it was time for refreshments. They were looking for something to drink. And so they thought, you know what, let's just drink that rum. Which I know it sounds gross, but I did hear it was the most full bodied rum they'd ever had. Ha ha. Alright, we're on Barrington Street right now, and the street has a lot of buildings that have historical significance. And And so these buildings have blue or green caps on them. You'll see them on a couple of buildings here. And that means that those buildings are heritage properties. And so for a building to be deemed a heritage property, it needs to have had someone of historical significance living in the building or a historical event happen near the building. And on your left-hand side, we're going to be passing St. Paul's Anglican Church. And that's actually the oldest building in all of Halifax. And it's also the oldest place of Anglican worship in all of North America. And it opened in 1750. And there's two things you should know about St. Paul's if you're going to take a visit. And the first is that underneath the building are the bodies of the original members of the congregation, and also the front pew of the pews. The first pew is reserved for members of royalty. I don't know if we have any royalty on board, but if you are, you guys there, yeah. But if you're not a member of royalty and you sit there, you're going to be slapped with a $1,200 fine. So just a little heads up if you're going to visit there. And then we're going to be passing City Hall, and every year they leave the Harbor Hopper a little message. We're at a red light now, so maybe we'll see it a bit better, but I'll give you guys a heads up when it comes. It's kind of small, but it's sweet that they gave us a message. Alright, it's coming up in just a couple seconds.
We're heading to the water.
There it is. This is Harbor Hopper. Oh, they're so sweet. Now we're almost at the water portion. There's just a couple of things I'll point out before we get there. One being those murals right there on your left-hand side, and they're a part of a collection called Our Stories. And they're made by Indigenous artists here in Halifax whose ages range from 9 to 55. Such a great way that the city is promoting local Mi'kmaq artists. And over here on your right side, there really isn't much special. It's the bus terminal. And there's also a whole lot of construction. So this area used to be the Cogswell Interchange, and it was a highway, but then they realized that it wasn't really the best idea to put a highway in the middle of the city. So it's turning into a pedestrian-friendly area. And in Halifax, we like to say we have two seasons. We have winter, and we have construction, so it's construction season right now. That's okay. And in just a matter of seconds, we're going to be turning into the water. Is everyone excited? It's going to be awesome. There's just a couple of safety announcements that I have before we get there. The first is please hold on to your favorite kids because it's going to get a little bit bumpy as we enter the water. And then make sure your arms and your limbs are nice and out of the vessel at all times. Or inside the vessel, sorry. And then I have one last thing to ask. It's mainly for the people at the front here. Do you guys want a little splash or a big splash? Big splash? Yeah? Alright, we're having a big splash today. And I'll get off the mic so that Captain Logan can radio into Halifax traffic.
Waiting for the red light. Now it's green. Okay, we're close to the water. Oh, this is the harbor. Oh no! We're in the water now. Hello, Tyson. Woohoo!
Wow,
That's
that
fine.
was the biggest splash I've ever seen.
Hello.
I thought you guys were there. That's crazy. Usually I just like.
Now we're in the water.
That's an awesome splash. Thank you.
Woohoo!
Alright, welcome to the Halifax Harbour. So, this is the second deepest ice free harbour in the world, and it's the second deepest. The first one is Sydney, Australia. And we just passed the naval dockyard, it's right back there. And it's the oldest and the largest one in all of Canada. And I know that sounds like a pretty big accomplishment, but there's only two naval dockyards in Canada, so it's a pretty low bar. And right over there, on your right hand side, that's the Halifax Casino. And it opened in 2000 by the same people who made. Sorry. Sorry. It'll dry off, yeah. So that was made by the same people who Caesar's Palace in Las Vegas. And I'm not much of a gambler, so I can't really say if it's a good casino or not. But I can say that it's a Canadian fashion. It's supposed to look like lighthouses. So I've noticed 3 domes there, and they're meant to represent lighthouses. And that building over there is Purdy's Wharf, and it's an office building. So you may be wondering why I'm mentioning an office building. That's because of those white tubes that you can see that go into the harbor water. So they were having a hard time with their air conditioning costs, and they went to Dalhousie engineers to come up with a solution. And they came up with something called a geothermal cooling system. Oh, you guys know it? Yeah? It actually uses the water from the harbor to cool the building instead of traditional air conditioning. It's a really cool local innovation, and it saves the building about $100,000 a year in air conditioning.
Siguro pagkaduman Canada. Canada. Yeah. There's a name there,
And then girls right there,
Canada.
on your right hand side, there's part of the Halifax Film Festival which is happening. So there's a lot of beautiful art made by local artists all across the city. And we keep murals in this particular area because there used to be graffiti, so the city decided to have murals swap out their paintings every couple of weeks or so to promote local artists as well as release graffiti. So it's a win-win situation, and they've created a lot of beautiful art. And usually you'll see a couple people fishing because the harbor water, there's lots of mackerel here. And in terms of other sort of animals, we have seals in the harbor. So usually a couple times a day we're going to see a seal. Hopefully that'll happen today, and if you see one, just shout it out so we can all experience that. Which way for the seals? Anywhere, yeah, anywhere in the harbor. And right across the water over there, that's our sister city, Dartmouth. And it's known as the City of Lakes. They have a ton of beautiful lakes to go swimming in, and it's really easy to get there. You can take the McDonald or the McKay Bridge right over there, or you can also take the ferry. And so the ferry terminal that we have here is North America's longest continuously operating saltwater ferry system, and it's been in operation since 1752. And we have a couple of ferries that are all named after notable Nova Scotians. The trip's really easy and convenient. It's about $3 to get across the harbor, and it's a 15-minute boat ride. I definitely recommend you do that so you can experience another city while you're here in Halifax. But it wasn't always such a big operation. It actually used to be one man in his rowboat, and he would take people across the harbor one person at a time. So I'm sure the trip was a little bit awkward. And at the time, he was judging your outfits because you were only allowed to go on this ferry if you were wearing your absolute Sunday best, your nicest outfit. So I don't know if I would have been let on this ferry in the clothes I'm wearing right now, but I can definitely go on the ferry today. And then those two ships there, the blue one is the Haworthia Spirit, and that's the ferry that's going to take you to George's Island. So if you book the tour to George's Island, you're going to go right there to get your seat on the ferry. And then the other boat is a Harbor Queen, and that's a party boat. So if you're not sick of the water yet and you want to have some fun, that's a great option for you guys. And so is a tall ship Silva. And then that area of shops and restaurants over there, that is the Queen's Mart. They have a lot of great options for you guys. Again, if you want any recommendations for restaurants or anything like that, I can provide that to you guys after the tour. You may notice that rectangular thing right there, that's the tidal beacon. And there's lights inside of it. It's hard to see them right now, but the idea is that the lights change depending on the tide. So the configuration looks different depending on whether it's high tide or low tide. And then you'll notice stairs that enter the water of the harbor. They're meant to represent the merging between land and sea. Sometimes you'll see people dipping their feet in, maybe having a light swim. I can't really necessarily recommend that, but you do you. I won't judge you. And then there's two ships upcoming. The first one there is the CSS Acadia. And CSS stands for Canadian Scientific Ship, so that ship used to survey the northern waters of Canada. And it's a survivor, so not only did it survive World War One and World War Two, it survived the Halifax explosion, and it was actually the only boat to be in the harbor at the time of the explosion and survive. So considering that, it's in really great shape. And the other boat there is the HMCS Sackville, and it's Canada's last remaining foreign-class corvette. If anyone's a lover of cars, you might know the Cars corvette, that actually their name derives from the boats because of how fast the boats are on water. And the HMCS is open for tours all throughout the day, and you can just walk on to the destination. So that's a great
That's a
option for you
big
guys if you want
yeah.
to explore the ship while you're here in Halifax.
Big yeah. Rich guy. Small yeah. And this one too. Woo.
Is that a seal? Oh my gosh! Right behind you, there's a seal.
Okay.
Very good.
Yeah.
Oh, that's really special. Oh,
There you go. Very nice. That's a big. That's a big yeah.
oh, that was so cool.
Yeah.
And over there on your right hand side, that's my yacht. It's my latest investment. Yeah, thank you guys. Yeah, I just bought it. Very proud of it. Of course, I'm kidding. That's not my yacht. I wish. It actually, we don't know who it belongs to because all the employees on that boat signed an NDA. So it's either a millionaire or a really cool celebrity. I don't know. I have my guesses. But it will cost around $100 million euros to make. So it's pretty cool. Maybe one day I'll be able to afford that. And then there's another branch of Pals if you're interested. Again, that's the ice cream shop that I pointed out on Kindergarten Road. And there's a lot of really great restaurants here at the
It doesn't
waterfront. I'd
fit
say
to
that
the
some of the city
screen.
best are
That's
located
a
right
big
here.
one.
And my personal favorite is the Bicycle Thief, and they do really great Italian food. And a lot of celebrities, when they come to Halifax, they like to eat at the Bicycle Thief. One being the one and only Judge Judy, which I think is pretty cool. So I'd have to say, if it's good enough for Judge Judy, it has to be good enough for you and I. Who knows? Maybe that's Judge Judy's yacht right over there. And then the last thing I'll point out, you're going to be able to see it as you make our turn. That's George's Island. And so it was a military fortification, just like Citadel Hill. They have their own fort and their own signal mast. You just take a ferry to the island, and there'll be tour guides who can show you around. It's really cool. They have underground tunnels that you can explore, and you can even have picnics on the island. So it's a really great option for your trips to Halifax.
That's the island.
And I always like to say that they do have snakes,
With
just a little more like they do have around
lighthouse.
400 to 500 garter snakes all throughout the island, but they're pretty shy, pretty harmless. You probably won't even see them while you're there, and I wouldn't let that deter you. Alright, I'm going to take a quick little break, and when I come back, I'll be talking about the Halifax explosion, but in the meantime, feel free to take in the beautiful view, and I'd be happy to take all of your photos.
Okay, guys. Thank you. Thank you so much for watching. That's all for now. And I see you to the next destination. Thank you so much. See you.